Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of At the Coalface Live. It is the 24th of September today. Well, at least it is here in New Zealand. We're a day ahead of just about everywhere else in the world, along with Australia. And it is awesome to be here with you again on a Friday afternoon. And I do have a trusty bourbon hidden away in that all-concealing coffee cup. And I want to just share with you before I get into the news of the week. Just want to share with you a little the bourbon that I'm drinking. It's called Legend, and it's actually it's a bit of a boutique bourbon. And I actually want to thank the team over at Retail Global for this bourbon. They sent me this after the last Retail Global event that I spoke at. Ended up being a virtual event. We had intended it to be a physical event, and then, of course, lockdown happened here in Auckland, and we all had to return home the day after the event started. So, but as a thank you, they sent me this bottle of bourbon, and I want to thank them for that. I've actually had this bourbon once before. I've bought it once before, and it's actually a very nice bourbon. Now, what's interesting about this bourbon is, although it's distilled in Kentucky, Bourbon County, Kentucky, which is all bourbons have to be distilled in Bourbon County, Kentucky. It's sort of like a champagne can't be called a champagne unless it comes from the Champagne region of France. It's the same with bourbon. Unless it comes from Bourbon County, Kentucky, you cannot call a bourbon. Otherwise, it's just a whiskey. Just like you can't call a scotch unless it's from Scotland. So this particular bourbon is a sort of a small batch made bourbon, distilled bourbon. And it's got quite an interesting story or history behind it. And it's got quite an interesting taste as well. Again, I am not I'm a bourbon aficionado in the sense that I love bourbons and I love trying and tasting different bourbons. But I'm by no means an expert when it comes to bourbons beyond drinking them and liking them and enjoying them. But this particular bourbon has quite an interesting backstory to it. A legend. It's got a Japanese influence. It says expertly distilled by 7th generation master distiller Fred No, and then refined by world-renowned chief blender Shinji Fukuyo, Fukuyo. Legend is a marriage of East and West. It's a celebration of the craftsmanship of Kentucky bourbon balanced with the artistry of Japanese blending, from rich aromas of mature oak and lingering spice to the flavors of dried fruits pulled from wine and sherry casks. Every sip of Legend is worth savoring and sharing. And I would agree with that. I look, at the end of the day, again, I'm no bourbon expert, but I do quite like my nice bourbons. And this bourbon is damn tasty on a Friday afternoon at 4:04 p.m. So very happy to be here with you guys. Very happy to be enjoying this bourbon. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit off the beaten track, if you're looking for something that's a little bit different to your run-of-the-mill bourbons that you get in just about every bottle store in the world, your Maker's Marks, and even to a degree your Buffalo Traces, which you can find at lots of different places. And heaven forbid you drink Jim Beam. But if you want to try something a little bit out of the ordinary with a slightly different kick and taste to it, feel free to try Legend Bourbon. I can highly recommend it. Very, very tasty drop. Now, we're going to get into the news of the week this week, or at least the top news headlines that have crossed my desk this week. It's been a very, very busy week for me. I've had some amazing conversations with some amazing clients this week. I'm really, really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment, having such a great time, having such a fun time with Greenwood Consulting and working with some amazing clients that have some big, big programs of work underway at the moment due to COVID, largely due to COVID. All of the brands that I'm working with have realized that, hey, look, they need to level up their e-commerce game. If they want to stay relevant for the future, they really, really need to level up. And so they're bringing in expertise. They're bringing in outside expertise, myself and agencies and other partners to help them do that. And it's such an exciting time to be working in this space. It's actually the busiest and most exciting time in over 20 years in this industry for me personally. And I'm absolutely loving it. The conversations I'm having are at a high level. The investment, the attention, the love that's being poured into e-commerce and omni-channel functionality and all of the back office functionality and processes and organizational design and everything really required to ensure that the customer has an amazing e-commerce omnichannel experience. These are the discussions that I'm having on a daily basis with businesses, and it's literally the most exciting time to be in this space. And I oftentimes tell the story that pre-COVID, we oftentimes had to have very difficult discussions with merchants, and we kind of almost, to a degree, had to drag some of them kicking and screaming towards an e-commerce and omni-channel future. And now it's kind of gone the other way. Now it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose, in the sense that every brand realizes that in order for them to be relevant in a digitally led future, they have to have a first-class e-commerce experience. They have to have a first-class omni-channel experience. And if they don't, then they're going to get left behind by startups that do, or by other brands that are more aggressively pursuing the digitally led customer experience. So it's a fantastic time to be in this space. I can't imagine literally doing anything other than what I'm doing right now. It's a pleasure to be with you guys this week. I love doing the podcast. I love speaking to people that are more intelligent than me. I love speaking to people that know about things that I don't know about, and sharing their wisdom and their knowledge and their capability with me, and by extension, everybody who is part of my audience. I truly love it. I really, really love where we're at. Some other areas of society are a bit challenging at the moment with COVID, but when it comes to digital, we're pretty lucky to be working in this space, and I feel privileged every single day that I kind of fell into this industry over 20 years ago. I literally, I've told this story on a number of occasions, so I won't go over it again, but I literally fell into this industry, and it feels like such a blessing, such a privilege, such a gift to be in this industry every single day, and I can't imagine doing anything else. So anyways, probably enough emotional shit for one Friday live session. And I'll get into the news of the week, and then I'll get into what I typically do at the end of these sessions, which is more like an Ask Me Anything type of a session, period of the discussion, where you can ask me questions, you can provide commentary, you can jump in, whether that be on LinkedIn, whether that be on Facebook, whether that be on YouTube. Jump into the comments and drop your comments, your thoughts, your questions in there, and I will come back to those at the end of the discussion around the news, so that we can have a bit of a dialogue, so that we can have a discussion, so that we can have an interaction. So I'll jump into the news of the week, and then from there, if it spurs any thought, if it spurs any conversation, then I would look forward to that at the end of the session. So without further ado, I will get into the news of the week. Take a sip of bourbon in the meantime. So a pretty big announcement. Amazon says it will spend $7.5 billion on a giant data center or multiple data centers in Auckland, New Zealand. Now, this is the original article came out in the New Zealand Herald, but it's been all over the news over the last couple of days. It was in TechCrunch and a few other major news outlets. And the discussion was that Amazon plans to spend $7.5 billion. Now, this is amortized over about 15 years, but that they're going to build a cluster of data centers in Auckland, all due to open in 2024. And they said that they'll add $10.8 billion in aggregate to New Zealand's GDP over a decade and a half. So again, over that 15-year period. And they're going to create over 1,000 new jobs in the process. Now, Tim Dacon-Bird, who's the AWS New Zealand head, I've met Tim before. I've been to a couple of symposiums that Tim led, and Tim's a great guy. I think he's a really smart cat. He understands the AWS business very well. He understands the local ANZ market very well, and he is the local New Zealand head of AWS. Really cool guy. And when he spoke to the Herald, he said that the $7.5 billion was calculated over 15 years and included the cost of building at least 3 data center zones, stocking them with hardware, operating costs, utilities, and salaries. Now, what's interesting about this is it will be so New Zealand will become a full AWS region, which means they'll have 3 availability zones in New Zealand. They'll have now, for those of you who don't know, an availability zone is defined as 1 or more data centers, and they will become one of 25 AWS data center regions worldwide. So New Zealand, as per usual, punching well above its weight from an e-commerce and cloud data perspective, a cloud compute perspective, punching well above our weight. And Tim said that Amazon is the second major global tech provider to invest heavily. This was the Digital Economy Minister David Clark. In response to Tim's announcement from AWS, he said Amazon is the second major global tech provider to invest heavily in establishing a cloud region in New Zealand after Microsoft, bringing with it new jobs, exciting new opportunities for the digital sector, and further accelerating our economic recovery from COVID-19. So typical government speak there from David Clark. He had obviously nothing to do with this. This all comes down to the commercials of the market and Amazon obviously believing that this region is ripe for the picking from a cloud perspective. So good on AWS, good on Amazon, good on Tim. And look, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years as Amazon becomes a force to be reckoned with in cloud in New Zealand versus the established players like Spark and Datacom and some of the others that are already playing here. Now, next piece of news. New Squarespace e-commerce and omnichannel functional announcements. Now, I didn't see this in the news as much as I got an email from Squarespace. So Greenwood Consulting, our website's built on Squarespace. It's pretty much just an informational website, no e-commerce, of course, to speak of on the website. However, because I'm a subscriber to the Squarespace platform, I receive emails from Squarespace when they launch new features and functions. And so a couple of days ago, I got an email from them, and it's since hit the wider e-commerce and marketplace press. But they effectively directed me to a video where they announced a bunch of new e-commerce and omnichannel functionality. Now, what struck me immediately after I was redirected to this video and I watched the video, what struck me about this is that Squarespace is clearly trying to differentiate themselves from the existing Shopifys of the world, the BigCommerces of the world, the Wixes, the Weebly's. They're really trying to differentiate themselves from a typical CMS, SaaS CMS provider or a SaaS e-commerce provider. They're trying to carve out a bit of a niche for themselves. Yes, they're a SaaS e-commerce website builder. Yes, they have e-commerce plugin functionality. Yes, they do things similarly to all the other SaaS, CMS, and e-commerce platforms out there. However, they do have some differences, and they're continuing to attempt to differentiate themselves from their competitors. And they had a list of about 5 or 6 different announcements related to e-commerce and omnichannel that I think are worth actually just covering at a very high level. One is Video Studio. Now, they say in the announcement, it says, with new Squarespace Video Studio, it's incredibly simple to produce viewable product videos that will make your Squarespace e-commerce site a sales machine. Select a page on your website, choose a video theme, and the app will pull in your logo, color palette, and product photography automatically with just a few clicks and zero editing. So I saw a little bit of a preview of this, and what it looks like is it effectively takes almost like a collage of your product images off of your product page, and it creates it into a branded video around that product and around your brand with an entire template around that video. So pretty cool functionality. It's basically plug, play, plug in the images, plug in the template, plug in your branding, and boom, out comes a video of that product and with all of the appropriate branding. Now, some of the other things that they announced were things like marketplace tools, and they said that they've got a new integration with Etsy Shop. So in other words, you can import your products, you can import your reviews, set up an online store within Etsy in minutes. They didn't announce, at least as part of this announcement, any other marketplace integrations, but I suspect that now they have the capability to integrate with marketplaces. It would not surprise me at all if you see within the next 6 months an integration with Amazon, an integration with eBay, an integration with Catch, and all the other major marketplaces around the world, Mercado Libre, etc. So once they've kind of built this infrastructure and built this model of mapping, for example, your product categories on your e-commerce site to the equivalent categories in the marketplace. Once you've got all this tooling down, it becomes much, much easier to integrate with other marketplaces after the first one. The first one is the hurdle. The first one is the bitch. The first one is really, really difficult. So now that they've integrated with Etsy, I suspect that they'll be able to integrate with other marketplaces pretty readily. Now, the next 2 announcements seem intertwined, and I was a little bit confused. It didn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me of the differences between what's called Squarespace scheduling and an acquired technology called reservations and orders, which is part of Talk. So Talk was an acquired technology that's been integrated with Squarespace, but in essence, both Squarespace scheduling and Squarespace Talk are all designed to facilitate hospitality and appointment-based businesses being able to schedule and sell online. So what they said in the announcement, it says Squarespace has all the right tools for managing your reservations and your scheduling, allowing you to spend less time booking and more time serving. It says Talk from Squarespace is a powerful solution for hospitality professionals who need to seamlessly manage reservations, events, and more. So basically, this is targeted at things like hairdressers and restaurants and takeaway shops, and anybody who has a practice where, I don't know, maybe you're a health practitioner and you need to book people in, and maybe they need to be able to either book in advance or pay in advance or both. And it sounds like all of this functionality is natively integrated into Squarespace now, which is pretty exciting news. And it's definitely a differentiator between them and other e-commerce platforms or pure e-commerce platforms. Now, the other thing is that they are created what's called Squarespace member areas, and that allows Squarespace merchants to start selling content. So in the announcement, it says, build your business and community with content that resonates. Squarespace member areas make it easy to turn classes, blogs, podcasts, videos, and more into new revenue streams. Squarespace member areas enables educators, content creators, and community builders to sell their content by charging for access to private sections of their website. So effectively, it's a password restricted area of the website, and unless somebody pays for a subscription or pays a one-off fee, they can't actually access those areas. And again, this is new functionality, so I haven't been able to test it yet, even though I'm on Squarespace. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the real world scenario. The final thing that Squarespace announced was the Unfold app. And this is an app that allows you to effectively plumb a lot of your Squarespace functionality and your creative into social media. And they say that Unfold, success on social media with Unfold from Squarespace, is everything you need to stand out on social platforms and grow your audience, create stunning social content with expert-looking templates, easy plan, and schedule your Instagram posts and start monetizing your bold ideas. Unfold bio sites. Bio sites help share all your important links in a simple, beautiful page optimized for social. Your link in bio has never been so powerful. Schedule posts coming soon. Schedule your social posts weeks in advance across multiple Instagram accounts. So obviously, they're starting off with Instagram here. It's almost like, they're trying to be one of those social media integration platforms, Sprout Social, etc., whereby you can create this content in advance, and then you can schedule the deployment of these posts across multiple social media platforms. I've never been a fan of pre-scheduling social posts, just because you never know what happens between the time that you create your content and the time that it actually gets distributed. If you're not creating and distributing in real time, what often happens is you become tone deaf and you become culturally insensitive. So let's say you're scheduled to put out a piece of content that is going to resonate with Australia or Australians, and then your content automatically gets distributed on the day of the recent Melbourne earthquake, for example. Now, that's going to come across as quite tone deaf. You're going to be pushing out this piece of maybe commercial content where you're going to be pushing people to a new drop on your website or something like that, and it's going to be dropping in the Australian time zone. But then again, in the meantime, in the intervening time frame between the time that you scheduled and the time that the piece of content drops, we have a massive earthquake in Melbourne, or we have the tradies protesting on the street against lockdowns in Melbourne. So these types of scenarios, I'm not a massive fan of scheduling content in advance for social. I don't think it necessarily always works. But certainly what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring all of your branding, your templating, and your assets from your Squarespace site into your social content. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of the scheduling feature, again, dubious whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but at least in terms of trying to connect all of your Squarespace branding and your digital brand guidelines and your assets, etc., and bringing that into the Unfold app, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. So, remains to be seen what this looks in actual practice, but in theory, it sounds pretty good. So, let's just see how it all plays out. Okay, next piece of news. Peloton launches apparel range down under, and this is a report from Internet Retailing. Fitness brand Peloton is launching today its private label fashion brand, Peloton Apparel in Australia. Collection with targets male, female, and gender-neutral styles is available online, ranges in price between $24 and $182, and uses 4 fabric styles tested for different functions. And I went ahead and I checked out the website. I went to peloton.com. There was a link to this. It did announce it. It redirects you to apparel.onepeloton.com.au. It's a site that's built on Shopify, which is obviously their e-commerce website. And it does have that range of apparel available literally today. As of now, I don't know when it went live, but it's at least available to buy right now. Now, $182 pair of leggings seems extreme. But then again, I'm not the typical Peloton customer. I'm not the type of customer that's going to go out there and spend $2,500 Australian dollars on a stationary bike. That's just not me. I am not their target market. But clearly they know their target market. Clearly they have a connection with their target market, and clearly they know how to set prices that will resonate, in the sense of Peloton is trying to become the Apple of stationary bikes, the Apple of exercise equipment, the Apple of exercise gear, the upmarket. I can afford to buy $182 pair of leggings. They're going after that market, and they're rising above those price points of Nike Pro and Lululemon and some of the other competitors in the space. And this makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, if you will pay $182 for a pair of leggings with the Peloton logo on your leggings because you can afford it, and you want to show everyone that you can afford it, then more power to you. Absolutely fucking good on you. And in the announcement, it said, "We know Australians take athleisure wear seriously." Well, clearly fucking Peloton owners take their shit very seriously. It says, "We take athleisure wear seriously, and we're excited to launch this new era of fashion, mixing comfort, casualness, and functionality alongside our global community," said Peloton's VP of Apparel, Jill Foley. "In recent months, it's been great to see our Australian members as excited about our brand as we are." And so, yeah, look, lots around this announcement, and, good on them. They're taking something that has been commoditized, exercise bikes. They're taking something that's been commoditized, active wear. Just go and watch the funny video on YouTube, active wear. But they're trying to move it up market, and they're trying to set themselves apart, and they're trying to carve out a niche for their brand, and they've done a fucking good job of that so far. And more power to you. If you can charge $182 for a pair of leggings, you're doing a bloody good job at promoting the value of your brand in the marketplace. So good on Peloton, and wish you all the best. Now, marketplace platform Miracle raises $555 million at a $3.5 billion valuation. Originally, the story was broken. I think it was by New York Times or somebody, but then it came out in TechCrunch and a few other marketplace press releases. And then I went and checked that out. I checked out TechCrunch and a few others, and I've put out a little bit of content around this previously. But it's pretty big news. $550 million raise as a Series E. Typically, a Series E, a lot of brands don't get to a Series E round of funding, because by the time they get to an A, a B, or a C, oftentimes the next step after that is going public with an IPO. And oftentimes the investors up to that point will almost force a business to go IPO so that they can realize a net gain off of their investments to date. However, Series E funding round, $555 million, post funding valuation at $3.5 billion. So we're talking, this is well and truly into unicorn That's a bloody shame. Dominic, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Wow. So 420. It looks like we could as of 4:25 p.m. Dominic couldn't hear me. So at least for the last 8 minutes, no one could hear me. It looks like the record light is on, and it looks like people can hear me. Now, if anybody else other than Dominic cannot hear me, I've replugged in the microphone. So thank you, Baron. Appreciate you jumping in. You obviously can hear me. A few other people can hear me. Dominic, I'm hoping that it's just an audio issue on your side. I'm hoping that it was, I'm pretty gutted if the last 8 minutes worth of commentary, nobody could hear me. I guess we'll see when we play this back. Maybe it was 8 minutes of total silence, me looking like a sock puppet. So hopefully that is not the case. So apologies for that. So 8 minutes ago, I'm just trying to think about where I possibly would have stopped. Talking about Marketplace, Miracle raising $555 million at a $3.5 billion valuation. Went into some depth on that. Went into some depth on AKA brand shares slumping in trading debut as the company highlights risk that eco-conscious Gen Z shoppers will reject its fast fashion approach. And I went through a whole bunch of statistics there. And then I talked about podcast episode. This was the Coalface podcast, episode 97, dropping yesterday, which is with Blake Hutchison of Flippa, which Flippa is the world's largest marketplace for digital e-commerce and other digital assets, such as blogs, such as podcasts, such as affiliate platforms, such as let's call it apps in general. So I have had a fantastic time with Blake. Go and check out episode 97 of the podcast if you haven't listened already. I think you will enjoy it. So thanks, Nick. Really appreciate you coming on. So hopefully this broadcast came through loud and clear for the duration, and hopefully Dominic was just an anomaly. But thank you, Dominic, for calling that out. And as I said, just basically when I realized you'd made that commentary, just plugged the microphone back in, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So thank you very, very much for your time. It is 4:35 p.m. Appreciate you persevering with me today on a Friday. Again, thank you very much for joining me for a drink on this Friday afternoon. And I hope you guys have an absolutely cracking weekend. Put this in your calendar every single Friday at 4 p.m. New Zealand time. I jump on and I give you the news stories of the week. We drop a podcast episode every single Thursday at 11 a.m. New Zealand time and 11 a.m. New Zealand time, 9 a.m. Australian time. Every single Thursday, we drop a new podcast episode. So go and check that out. Go and subscribe there. And if you have any questions, feel free to direct message me on pretty much every social platform that I'm on. But I spend most of my time on LinkedIn from a social media platform perspective. So if you've got any questions, you've got any commentary, you've got any news, you've got anything that you want to break to me or anything that you want to ask, feel free to message me on LinkedIn and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And I may bring those stories up on my live sessions every Friday afternoon. So again, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate all the time you guys share with me. I realize time is the commodity. Time is the thing that's precious to us. So have a fantastic weekend and we'll catch up with you next week. Cheers, guys. Catch you soon. Bye-bye.